tenants quite often refuse to pay the last month's rent and say, take it from my deposit. This is kind of a tough one because to some extent landlords have been hampered by the bad landlords who always used to take the deposit for all kinds of spurious reasons, and so tenants have responded to that by making sure there's very little money for them to take. It's also actually a reflection of the very fundamental problem with the whole deposit system, which is that tenants really need two deposits, because as you leave one tenancy, your deposit's still being held by a landlord, but you have to pay a deposit into the next tenancy, so you effectively have to have your deposit twice. And in fact, the biggest net benefiters of that entire system are payday lenders. From a landlord's perspective, most tenancy agreements say that the tenant shouldn't take it as their last month's deposit. Shouldn't withhold the deposit on the grounds that shouldn't withhold the rent on the grounds that there is a deposit. So I would write to them on that point. In practice, I'm not sure there's a great deal landlords can do. I certainly would never agree to it, because the difficulty then is what happens if the tenant damages the property during that last month, or leaves it dirty, or leaves tons of stuff behind which you then have to pay money to get rid of. So it's not something a landlord should acquiesce in. If a tenant does it, it's one of those things that in practice it's incredibly tough to do much about, because it's over and you're left following them up. Some landlords have now tried to get the tenant to pay 2 months' rent at the start of the tenancy, so being the first month's rent and the last month's rent. That's probably an acceptable mechanism, and then take a separate deposit as well. But then the argument, of course, is you're just shifting the problem into the second last month of the tenancy, so I'm not sure there's ever really a great way to resolve it. I suspect longer term the government's going to have to relook at the whole issue of deposits and consider whether deposit schemes should be converted to become schemes that protect landlords instead of protecting tenants. So effectively provide a government-backed insurance bond of some description for landlords that tenants pay into. But we'll have to see where things end up.